Hi cheese friends! Finally, a cottage cheese recipe I can be proud of. In this video, I'll show you the exact steps you can take to get this recipe right. So come into my kitchen and let me show you how to make cottage cheese. If you're familiar with the channel, you're probably wondering, wait, why isn't she in the kitchen? Because normally at this point in the videos, the intro has rolled and I'm in the kitchen making whatever cheese was up for the day. But I wanted to take a moment and chat with you about the challenges I had trying to get a good cottage cheese recipe together. I tried several, I did a lot of different research, and I just couldn't get the consistency right, and I couldn't get the texture right, or even the flavors. So I began to develop a recipe that I felt would achieve the cottage cheese that I know here in the US. So I took a step back and I asked myself about the characteristics I was trying to achieve in this cottage cheese. So here are the three things I'm looking for. One, I'm looking for a milky and somewhat tangy taste. Two, I'm looking for a fairly small curd because I appreciate a smaller curd. You can buy it in a large curd, but I like it like this. But the curds still need to be intact and they need to be somewhat firm. And the third thing I'm looking for is I want the curds to be suspended in this creamy coating without having to add heavy cream like I saw in a lot of other recipes, because I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in putting at least a cup and a half of 36% cream into my curds. Normally, I eat the stuff to try to stay thin. This recipe achieves all of those three characteristics and really embodies what cottage cheese is to me. So come on into my kitchen and I'll show you how to make it. Vince and I prep the kitchen together before any cheese making begins. Sanitize your work surfaces with bleach water, including handles and knobs. Sterilize your stainless steel equipment by boiling it for about 15 minutes. Then stage your equipment on sanitized cloths so everything is ready to go. Heat the milk to 84 degrees Fahrenheit and stir occasionally to prevent the milk from scalding. Then you'll turn off the heat and pour in a 1/4 cup of cultured buttermilk. Stir in the culture for 1 minute. We're going to use 8 drops of calcium chloride and we'll add it to a tablespoon of the purified water. I'm using this because I'm using pasteurized milk and it will help ensure a better curd. Stir it in for 1 minute. Now we'll add the rennet and we'll do it the same way. A tablespoon of purified water, and then we'll add 8 drops of single strength rennet. That looks good. Now we'll add it to the milk and stir for no longer than 1 minute. Now the milk needs to rest between 4 to 6 hours and between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to use my oven with the oven light on because that's just about the perfect temperature for me. If you have a bread proofer, that could work well, or if it's a warm day, you could even wrap a towel around the pot. It's up to you. We'll see you in a few hours. I'm going to check it at 4 hours. I checked it at the 4-hour mark, but I wasn't really happy with the break. There wasn't any whey seeping out from the cut yet, and the curd mass was still pretty jiggly. So I decided to let it go another hour. You'll need to sterilize your cheesecloth. I could have done that with the rest of the equipment in the beginning, but I forgot about it, so I'm doing it now. When it's cool enough to touch, wring it dry and drape it over your colander, so it's ready to go. At the 5-hour mark, the curd mass was much firmer. Can you see how it's pulling from the edge of the pot? It's time to cut these curds. Cut these curds into 3/8 of an inch. It's about 1 centimeter. First vertically and then horizontally. Slowly and while stirring occasionally, heat the curds to 113 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. This can be accomplished by turning the stove on and off each time you come back to stir. I come back every 5 to 10 minutes or so. This stir can be done just occasionally. You'll notice the curds beginning to shrink as you move along through the 2 hours. If you'd like to retain the whey, place the colander over a pot and then pour the curds into the colander and let them drain for 30 minutes. I like to use the whey for soups and marinades. Then take the four corners of the cheesecloth, twist them together, and create a knot so it can hang. Hang the cheese until the dripping stops, about 30 minutes to an hour. To achieve that just right creamy consistency, I'm going to use evaporated milk, but I'm going to evaporate my own because I like the flavor better than the canned. You'll take 3½ cups of whole milk, and then you'll heat it to a low boil. Now here's the trick. You'll have to stir constantly for about 25-30 minutes in order to achieve this. What you're going to do is you're going to take this 3½ cups of milk down to 12 ounces. To avoid scalding, you've just got to stay here and keep stirring. For me, this is the only real work to this recipe. You really can't leave the stove because you want to make sure that the milk doesn't scald or even boil over. But if you just don't have the time to stand here for about 20 to 30 minutes constantly stirring, you can always use a can of evaporated milk. And then you'll take it off the stove and let it cool completely. It will thicken as it cools. And now it's time to take the cheese out of the cheesecloth. And then gently break up the curds with a spoon. Now lightly salt the cheese. It is okay to use iodized salt. Iodine is normally not good for cheese making, but this is a fresh cheese. I'm going to eat it in a couple of days. Should be just fine. I use between 1/8 and 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then just fold the curds into the evaporated milk. All right, here it is. Beautiful, delicious, fresh cottage cheese. Here are a couple of things to note. This is a very fresh cheese without a lot of salt, so I recommend that you keep it in the refrigerator no longer than 5 days. Also, if for some reason it's not as creamy as you would like it to be, it's not a problem to add more evaporated milk. In addition, sometimes after a day or two in the refrigerator, the curds will have soaked up some of that liquid, and you can add more liquid at that point. If you're a fan of the cat, she wasn't very cooperative this time, so there aren't nearly as many shots of her in this video as I would have liked. Hopefully, she'll be a little more responsive in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate your support. We'll see you in the next video. So good.